Early in December 2016, a girl's borrowed car was found left on the road beside a river. She was nowhere to be found, and her family suspected the worst.
In the middle of the bridge, there's a car that's abandoned. It's off to the side of the road.
They wondered if maybe she'd taken her own life. The 19-year-old had had a harrowing few years after the death of her mother, but things had been looking up for her. She'd been hoping to move to Canada with the help of an unexpected inheritance. But now she was missing, and the answer to her disappearance lay with the most unlikely source: 3 of her childhood friends.
And the worst part is, we threw her off the bridge, and the body never showed up.
A trip to the bank, a sting operation, and a confession. This is the harrowing story of the murder of Sarah Stern.
Bro, this is like a fucking movie, bro.
It started in the early hours of December 3rd, 2016, on the Jersey Shore.
911, where is the emergency?
Not the emergency. Actually on the Belmar Bridge, right after heading south in the middle of the bridge, there's a car that's abandoned.
So what kind of car is it?
Kind of looks like an old beat-up, light tan-colored, sedan.
And what was your name, sir?
If it's okay, I'd just rather be anonymous.
This is the voice of an Uber driver who'd been passing on the bridge and had noticed the stopped car.
Was there anybody inside the vehicle?
I looked, no.
This was the bridge that connected Belmar and Neptune City in New Jersey, going over Shark River, a shallow inlet right on the brink of the Atlantic Ocean. It wasn't a place you just leave your car without a reason. And this 911 call raised alarm bells with the local police department. They sent an officer over to check out the scene. He found the car, an Oldsmobile 88, just as the caller had described it. Empty, with no sign of its driver, and the keys still in the ignition. When they ran the license plate, they found the car was registered to 96-year-old Lillian Stern. Lillian was the matriarch of a large family. She had 15 grandchildren, 19 great-grandchildren, and 6 great-great-grandchildren. One of these grandchildren was 19-year-old Sarah Stern, who frequently borrowed her car. With this information, the pieces rapidly came together. Sarah's father, Michael Stern, had been attempting to contact her all night since the evening of December 2nd. He was on vacation in Florida, and he had no idea where she was. The last Michael had heard from her had been a text on December 1st. He'd sent her a photograph of Cinderella's castle at Disney World, and she'd replied, "Wow, the castle looks so pretty with the lights." At just after 10:30 p.m. the next evening, he asked, "Sarah, are you up?" When she didn't respond, he began to get frantic. He sent a series of texts. "Sarah, what's going on? Grandma's trying to get in touch with you. Why is your phone off? Call me when you get this message." Sarah hadn't replied to a single one of these texts. Now, the car she'd been driving had been found abandoned on a bridge. It was clear that something had happened to her. Something bad. But what? The police spoke to her friends and family to try and understand her situation further. They spoke to her neighbors and discovered that she dropped off some personal items that same afternoon.
"Can I bring my mother's stuff to your house?"
Her mother had died 3 years earlier, so these were precious belongings indeed. It wasn't a good sign for Sarah's mental state. The police arrived at the house of one of her oldest friends, Liam McAtasney, at around 4 a.m. He'd known Sarah since they were both in first grade, meeting in Sunday school at the age of 6. It seemed logical that he could provide information as to her state of mind.
What was her mindset last time you talked to her?
I just know she's been trying to get away. You can tell me she's going to Canada.
Trying to get away, okay. Canada, she's been real depressed lately?
Her dad is crazy.
The police spoke to him once that morning and then again a few days later. They wanted to understand what was going on in her life, why she might have absconded, or worse.
Does she ever talk about liking guys or...
Not that I know of. Girls? No. She has been known to obsess over girls in the past, though. one of my ex-girlfriends a few years ago, she was completely obsessed with her right around the time her mom had cancer and was dying. And
Liam revealed that Sarah had a troubled home life. In 2013, her mother had died of cancer. She was an only child, and this loss hit her hard in ways that Liam said made her act out.
She just would always say stuff like, "Maggie, if you don't come here right now, I'm going to kill myself." Or there have been multiple occasions where my ex-girlfriend Maggie has had to go to the Draper's house to help her with either her dad. I can't say for sure if her dad was going to do something, but there has been a few occasions where she said, "My dad's going to hurt me or I'm going to hurt myself," in the past.
She didn't have a boyfriend. In fact, Liam suspected she was a lesbian.
She's obsessed with these YouTubers, and most of them are known lesbians. So I don't know if they were her role models. I don't know. I don't know if how her family would have taken it if she were to come out and say it.
This trouble with her family was a through line, affecting everything else in her life.
I've never known her to be able to hold a job.
What about school?
She just didn't even sign up for classes.
You know why?
Canada, I guess. She needs to get away. Go to Canada. Get away from her dad.
Is she in Canada?
I couldn't tell you.
Liam implied she had a difficult relationship with her father, and that she'd been holding on to the idea of packing up and moving away to Canada to get away from everything. That she felt the need to escape. Had she abandoned her car on the bridge to make sure she wasn't followed when she left town?
What's her relationship like with her dad?
Not good.
When you say not good, what do you mean?
I can't say that anything's ever gotten violent, but I know that there's a lot of fighting all the time. When her mom died, she had money that was supposed to go to her, and her dad took that from her. Over the past few weeks, she's been just packaging things up in containers and moving them to other people's houses. I actually have some containers in my basement right now.
Liam painted a picture of a girl trying to escape the grasp of a controlling, aggressive father.
On the surface, in public, people know him as a very nice, friendly guy. And just from what Sarah told me, I think otherwise.
Did she ever tell you that she loves her dad?
Michael Stern was in Florida and had been for weeks. It seemed unlikely that he was somehow involved in Sarah's disappearance if the police were to class it as suspicious, but they weren't, not yet. They had very little physical evidence in the car and on the bridge to give clues as to her whereabouts. There was a surveillance camera under the bridge that hadn't been working for years. This meant that the CCTV camera attached to Sarah's neighbor's house, which showed her reversing out of her driveway at 11:45 p.m. on December 2nd, was the last camera to pick up evidence of her movements. Instead, the police had to rely on Liam's account of the day when he'd seen her for the last time.
Called her initially, asked her if she wanted to get some food, sometime between 1 and 2 o'clock.
Between 1 and 2?
I went over. We initially wrapped up all of her stuff, put it in the containers. We ate the Taco Bell in her kitchen.
You both were playing video games?
Yeah.
That's all you did up there in her bedroom? You stayed up there the whole time?
I think we might have been in the living room. I don't know. We weren't in her room when I left.
What kind of things were you talking about?
Liam said he left that afternoon to go to work and never saw her again. The account matched with the neighbor's security camera, which picked him up leaving that afternoon, as he said. It wasn't much for the investigators to go on, even if they did find Liam's long silences significant.
I want to give you the opportunity, okay?
Yeah.
To be ahead of all of this. If she provided you with information If she told you something, if she told you that she was going somewhere, if she told you that she was going to do something, you need to tell us. Did she tell you she was going to jump off the bridge?
No. If she had told me that she was going to jump off the bridge, there would have been no way that I could have gone to work that night. I went to work and I had one of the best nights of my life. I would not have been able to do that if I knew something.
The last person to see Sarah alive, her childhood friend and closest confidant Liam, claimed he didn't know anything about her plans for that evening, if she'd made plans, either to run away to Canada or to do something worse. He worked as a server, and he said he'd gone to his shift as normal and earned a lot of money. But he did have one question for the investigators.
If she did jump off the bridge, what are the odds that she's not somewhere all the way out in the ocean by now?
Asking this question implied that Liam believed Sarah was in the water, that finding her would be a matter for a team of divers, not the Canadian police. He seemed to know more about her fate than he was saying, but he maintained that she hadn't told him anything. Sarah and Liam had known each other for 13 years. Sarah was born in March 1997 in Neptune City, where she'd lived all her life. She was artistic and athletic, and after graduating Neptune High School, she'd started at Brookdale Community College, majoring in art and TV production. She'd met Liam and his twin brother Seamus when they were all 6 years old, and the three became fast friends. They named their group The Squad, and for a while they did everything together, continuing to share classes in high school. On Liam's Facebook profile, he listed Sarah under the family section of his friends list, demonstrating just how close the two of them were. Bonds like that are often forged in difficult circumstances, and Liam had been friends with Sarah throughout her mom's cancer diagnosis, treatment, and eventual death. This also meant that he knew about her inheritance, or the lack of, as he said that Michael Stern had taken the money meant for Sarah. But it turned out this wasn't the only money. Liam said that Sarah had gone into the bank on December 2nd while he'd waited outside.
Stay in the car?
Yeah.
What did she tell you she was stopping at the bank for?
Something to do with her money. I don't know. She had found money in the Avon house a few months ago, and she has a lockbox full of money in there. She said that it must have belonged to her mother. What she thought was her mom left it for her, hid it in the house, so if her dad were to take her money, she would still have money left for her by her mom. That's
how much money?
She said it could be from 20 grand to 100 grand. She wasn't sure. Well, she told me the condition of the money was pretty bad, like it was all stuck together. Well, it was old bills, so that could have been a reason for not knowing.
Did she give you any of the money?
No.
This was Sarah's escape route, a secret stash of money that only a select few people knew about. It was her ticket to Canada and another life there. That she'd made the trip to the bank to withdraw her money on the day that she disappeared suggested that maybe she disappeared out of choice. Except for one thing, her dog, Buddy.
There's absolutely nobody home. There's one dog, and the dog is in the cage. Well, the front door was unlocked. It wasn't open. It was just the house wasn't locked up.
She was a devoted pet owner, and yet she'd left him in his cage at her house that night, which she'd left unlocked when her car had pulled out of the driveway at 11:45 p.m. Her dad was still in Florida, meaning there was no one to feed the dog once she was gone. This was out-of-character behavior, but not strong enough evidence to make a case. Liam's parents arranged for him to be represented by a lawyer, meaning the police couldn't speak to him any further. And as December stretched on towards Christmas, the search was called off. As Liam had said in his interview, if her body was in the river, it had likely been washed out to sea by now. Sarah Stern's disappearance was looking like it would never be solved. But in January 2017, the case would break wide open thanks to another of Liam and Sarah's friends, a man named Anthony Curry. Anthony was another Jersey Shore native, a former classmate of Liam and Sarah's who was trying to break into the film industry. He'd spent Thanksgiving in November 2016, only a week before Sarah went missing, with Liam McAtasney, and they'd got talking about movies.
I make movies, I'm a filmmaker. He used to tell me ideas all the time about, films I should make and all that stuff, and he told me about this idea he had to kill this girl.
Liam described his idea as the plot of a horror film about a young woman being robbed, killed, and thrown off a bridge. Anthony thought nothing of it. It seemed just a fictional idea, until weeks later, when he connected it to the news about Sarah's disappearance. With her car being found on the bridge over Shark River, it was too much of a coincidence to ignore. He called the police. The problem for the case was that there was no evidence, only hearsay. They needed to hear it from Liam himself. So on January 31st, 2017, Anthony agreed to meet with Liam and secretly record their conversation in a sting operation. They set up this meeting with a staged phone call.
My camera broke, dog. I dropped it on the shoot. It fell into a bucket of blood. You couldn't spot me some cash from that girl's money, right?
Maybe. How much do you need?
Anthony arranged to meet with him later that night over Snapchat. Liam said, "You understand how serious my situation is. I can't say anything on my phone." He had spent his interview with police misdirecting them, making it sound like Sarah had run away to Canada, committed suicide, or else had even been murdered by her father. But he didn't hold back with Anthony when they met in person, even though he tried to check that Anthony wasn't wired.
I gotta feel you up real quick, alright? You're good. No disrespect. I'll show you. No disrespect, okay? Nothing. Yeah, I got the FBI on my ass, dude. I had planned Sarah's situation for me to be interrogated by cops. That was whole part of my plan, to make me look not guilty. And the worst part is, we threw her off the bridge, and the body never showed up. It's probably frozen. It's probably all the way out in the ocean.
Liam's question to the investigators in his interviews had indeed been suspicious. Not because she'd confided in him some plan to jump off the bridge, but because he'd been the one to push her.
We went to the bank. She took some money out, not all of her money. We're counting it out, and then she goes to walk out the front door. I choke her out, drag her. My biggest problem was the dog, and her dog laid there and watched as I killed her. Didn't do anything. I pretty much hung her, and it took me a half an hour to kill her. Set a timer, and it took me a half an hour after I hit start on the timer.
It had taken Sarah half an hour to die. Half an hour that Liam had coldly and callously timed on his phone. But when he left her house, crucially, he left without that phone. He'd misplaced it in the confusion.
I choke her out, drag her into the back, put her in a bathroom, and then I had to go straight to work. So Preston came over, took the body, put it in the bushes, and then I was at work. I left work a couple times, which looks sketchy. Right. I look for my phone though, right, which is a reasonable thing to do.
Yeah, you gotta look for your phone. Yeah, you can't.
Which is kind of me losing my phone was kind of a good thing, because the cops are like, oh, he's hanging out with her. He lost his phone. He's going back and forth between his house looking for it. Right. And then I get off work that night, go straight over, then we take her body out of the bushes and drag it over to her back fence, and I crawl, get into her car, and I back up. There's a security camera across the street, right, so I had to act like her.
Liam tried to avoid detection, going to work to give himself an alibi and trying to reverse Sarah's car out of her driveway in the same way that Sarah would have done. He communicated with his accomplice via walkie-talkie when they were driving.
I got up on top of the bridge, to throw her off. My plan was I was going to throw her off, run over, jump over the divider, and get into Preston's car. And then cars start coming up. I see, like, headlights coming. I try to get her over, and I can't.
He'd underestimated how much a human body weighed and how exposed he was on the bridge. It was in a panic that he finally got her over the barrier and into the water, to disappear without trace. He then escaped in his accomplice's car. But why? Why would he kill this girl who'd confided in him, who thought he was her friend?
The worst part of it is I thought I was walking out 50 grand, 100 grand in my pocket. She had one safe, and she took money out, and she only had 10 grand. And this money, I don't know if it was burnt or something. It's fucking old money, terrible quality. I didn't even get a quarter of it.
So you only got like, what, 7 grand?
Liam had killed her for money. The same money that he had mentioned in his interview, Sarah's money from her mom that she was using as her fund to go to Canada, was suddenly at the heart of this case. He spoke callously how he'd expected to make a larger profit out of her death. He was obsessed with protecting what he had and getting more money.
First it was in my house for a long time, but then I stopped trusting Preston.
Yeah, what's the deal with Preston? Did he end up, like, helping you or not?
Oh, yeah. Dude, tonight we just tried to rob a drug dealer together.
Liam named his accomplice, Preston Taylor. Preston was Liam's roommate, and he'd also gone to school with Anthony, Liam, and Sarah. He'd even been Sarah's date to the junior prom. But when Liam found out about Sarah's supposed windfall inheritance, possibly even $100,000, these long friendships became secondary. He and Preston only thought about one thing: how they could get their hands on that money. This recorded confession was the evidence the police department needed. The next day, February 1st, they arrested both Liam McAtasney and Preston Taylor.
What we're most interested in knowing, not necessarily what happened, because we already know that. We want to know why it happened. All right? We want to know why Liam did what he did. What did he do? He killed Sarah. Okay? And we know you know that. Right? You know that. Correct? Yes.
It didn't take much for Preston to admit to knowing everything. He confirmed what Liam had told Anthony, that they'd planned this for the money.
Did he tell you ahead of time that he was going to do this?
Yeah.
How long do you think that he planned to do this?
About a month. Which wasn't too serious at first. The first time he told me about it, him and Sean came into Clancy's where I was working, and he just said, like, no intentions at this time, but Sarah just found a bunch of money, and that was it. And then it wasn't until about a month or two later he said that he was coming up with the idea, taking her out and then find somewhere to dispose of the body.
They'd formulated this plan together over a series of months, taking pains to make sure it wouldn't lead to their discovery. But now this plan was falling apart because Preston was talking to the investigators, fully cooperating. He told them exactly how that fateful day, Friday, December 2nd, had gone down.
And you went into the back door. There was nobody else home. All right, and what did you see when you went into the house?
I saw her body in the downstairs back bathroom.
Preston helped Liam hide the body and then waited at home in the house they shared for Liam to finish his shift at work. He came home a few times during the shift to look for his missing phone.
How would you describe his demeanor when he came home?
Just completely frantic and out of his wits.
Neither of them could find the phone anywhere, so when Liam finished work, they proceeded with the plan, going back to Sarah's house where her murdered body lay hidden.
You didn't pull up in front of her house, walk in her driveway and walk in.
No.
Why didn't you do that?
Liam told me that there was a camera on the neighbor's house across the street.
Still trying to cover their tracks, they drove Sarah's body to the bridge.
Did you have to help him lift her over?
Yeah, he had her on the sidewalk.
Later on, the investigators took Preston to the scene of the crime itself, the bridge over Shark River, and he showed them where he and Liam had disposed of her body.
Liam had lifted Sarah's body by the shoulders and gotten her partially up onto the curb, where I then grabbed her by the legs and hoisted her up onto the railing, and then I pushed her feet over so that she was going over the rest of the way.
When Sarah was in the water, they drove away with her money. First, they hid it in their attic. Then they buried it in a park. Some of it they spent on weed.
What did he need the money for?
I don't know. We were just starting to move out, and he was getting tired of his job at Brennan's.
Sarah Stern had been murdered for the sake of a few $1,000s.
What do you think about?
I think about what it means for me if it did come back to us.
Did you think it was going to?
They did a pretty good job of convincing me that she'd covered everything up.
He'd done a pretty good job of convincing the cops, too. If Anthony hadn't come forward, Sarah's murder might have remained a disappearance or suspected suicide forever, thanks to Liam's misdirections. They both thought they'd gotten away with it. They did everything they could to divert suspicion, including attending vigils and helping with the search, all the time pretending they had no idea what had happened to Sarah. But in April 2017, they were both charged with felony murder in the first degree. A conviction without a body is a rare thing indeed, but with Preston's confession and Anthony's video, there was a strong case against them. Preston pleaded guilty to robbery, conspiracy to commit robbery, desecrating Stern's remains, conspiring to desecrate her remains, and hindering his and McAtasney's arrest. He was sentenced to 18 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 15 years and 3 months in exchange for his testimony against Liam. At his sentencing, Preston made a statement apologizing.
I'm truly from the bottom of my heart sorry.
Liam, however, had conveyed no remorse in the secret confession video and no remorse now.
I don't feel any different, and I don't think about it. You always think you're going to try these new things and you're going to change, but it didn't change. It just doesn't do anything.
In court, his argument was that in the video, he'd just been explaining the plot of a film to Anthony, that it had all been made up. There was little physical evidence after all, with Sarah's body having been washed out to sea. But there remained Liam's missing phone, which Sarah's family had found on her lawn the day after she was reported missing. The police discovered that its stopwatch function had been activated at 4:15 on December 2nd, when Liam had timed how long it took Sarah to die. The investigators had also found the safe buried at the park, containing the money they'd stolen, bills in a poor condition that matched the rest of the money still in Sarah's deposit box at the bank. The walkie-talkies Liam and Preston had used to coordinate were also submitted in evidence. As a result, the jury saw through Liam's defense. They found him guilty of first-degree murder, first-degree robbery, first-degree felony murder, second-degree conspiracy to commit robbery, second-degree disturbing or desecrating human remains, third-degree hindering, and fourth-degree tampering with physical evidence. He was sentenced to life without possibility of parole. He had murdered this girl he'd known since the age of 6, coldly and without remorse, for the sake of a few $1,000s. Now in their early 20s, he and Preston both remain in prison today after failed appeals, and Sarah's family continues to try to pick up the pieces. What do you think about this horrifying story? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay safe, keep up with our channel, and we will see you very soon on The Decoder.